Alright guys, TouchCrow back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And this past weekend there was quite some expectations that Optic Gaming would be able to go one better on LAN than they were able to do online. It doesn't happen in the end. They placed top 4. What exactly is holding Optic back from being the best team in the game, or at least competing for championships and making it to grand finals? Very much intrigued to get your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you were new as always. I greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that on this day, yesterday, all the way back in 2014, I believe. Evil Geniuses won MLG Anaheim with X, Crimsix, TP, and Karma back in the Ghost days. Crazy to think about how much things have changed since then, but I thought this is a nice little trip down memory lane for those of you who may well remember this event occurring. This, first of all, statistically, on this side of things at least, and I thought a nice little segue really into what we're going to talk about with the Optic side here. So, FaZe were 11-2 in Hardpoint. The only 2 they lost are in the grand finals. Remarkable stuff. Empire 12-8. They played so many maps, especially on that championship Sunday. They played 18 maps on that Sunday alone, which is ridiculous. Optic are at 9-6. In terms of Search and Destroy, Optic are down here at 5-6. You've got Surge at 2-9. That's not particularly pretty, to be honest. Legion actually top here at 4-2, but didn't really play too many. And of course, some of the top teams, the likes of FaZe, end up playing the best teams because they're playing through the winners bracket of these majors. Control, this is pretty ridiculous. 8-1 for FaZe. Optic down here at 4-5, for example. So not ideal. I mean, Optic kind of middle of the pack on most of these. And statistically, it wasn't a great stage for them by any means. They lose out to the Dallas Empire in the very first round. This 3-0 sweep was really somewhat telling, right? I thought about this Optic team right now, because they were expecting to come back to LAN and really put on a show, especially against a Dallas team that were kind of touted as onliners, right, for several months at this point. Doesn't happen though, and they end up falling out of the tournament top 4 in the end. So not the result that the Optic guys were looking for. Of course, as Formal says a couple of months ago now, just to manage the players that saw the LAN stuff, and a shiver went down their spine, excited for the return. But in the end, they had a pretty similar result to what you might have expected from this team. And Abel makes a somewhat interesting point, the fact that on the first day of action, you could actually argue that it was the teams that were worse online that actually got better, and that wouldn't necessarily be on the Optic Gaming side of things. So it's somewhat interesting. At the end of the day, are we surprised that things aren't too much different on LAN than online, and FaZe are still winning? Like, not really, right? That's just how things tend to go. But there was a lot of hype for this, that Optic would come back to this situation and be really good, and there's been a lot of talk about, okay, no more excuses, right? Because I can imagine in the Optic guys situation, and it's totally understandably so, they've been having issues so far this season, but definitely some expectation that when they got back to a LAN environment, some of those issues would go away, and they'd be back on top form once again. Now, of course, now that's probably not the case. Therefore, they actually maybe have to do some more internal thinking about exactly what is holding them back from being the best team in the game, because that, of course, is the goal. The fans, I mean, I think several years ago, the fans that were really enjoying winning everything, right, during the Dynasty era, it's not really possible to do that anymore unless you're called Atlanta FaZe. So, they're trying to get over the line here and win a championship, and it's going to be hard to do so right now, because obviously the league's very competitive, but also I think there were a lot of mistakes that they make consistently within their roster, and some discussion the last day or so as to exactly what is holding them back. And there's been a lot of talk about playstyles. Karma talks about it, of course, won a world championship on this team with the Dynasty squad. I mean, Scum, Formal, of course, Karma and Crimsix was the team, if you guys are new to the scene. But yeah, this is, of course, Optic finish out 4th place, losing 1-3 to the Dallas Empire in the end, a 6-1, and they got beaten 6-1 by Dallas on the weekends, and this is what Karma has to say on the matter. So a lot of discussion with regard to the playstyles that Optic have, and whether they're too similar, whether they're not on the same page enough, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're holding, they're getting held back at the present time. Still, top 4 isn't terrible, but if you look at the rankings right now in terms of the standings for the season, FaZe are number 1 by a mile, then you've got Empire, then you've got Ultra, then you've got New York, all in a very tight bundle as we looked at earlier today, and then Optic quite a bit further down for that. We can actually, I suppose, look at it right here. So Empire, Ultra, and Subliners, they're 320, 315, 310, then Optic down here at 270. So I think if you're going to do power rankings right now, 5th maybe is reasonable. Of course, they did come 4th at this event behind Ultra, Empire, and FaZe, but Subliners didn't have a seam in their squad. If they had a seam, then who knows if they get better placing than Optic or whatever the situation may happen to be. So I think Optic in terms of power rankings, 4th, maybe, probably 5th, to be honest, which is obviously not where you want to be, and especially because FaZe seem to be their bogey team that they can never get past. That is, of course, an issue when FaZe are always in the grand finals. So this is what Karma has to say yesterday, as Bryce says right here. In regards to my tweet about Optic, I suppose it's simplified to say it's about Optic's skill ceiling, what we've seen of it, and their ability to reach it consistently in regards to the competition they have to beat going forward. The question is, can they beat everyone in 2 months, right? When the World Championship comes around, are they going to be in that position? It's going to be tough. As Karma says, hate to say it, but the play styles are all very different with different paces. To win, they got to be all on point at the same time. So interesting statement here from Karma saying that, look, they're all very different with very different paces. So the players play at different paces. They're not always on the same page as each other. I think you see this a lot, to be honest. The fact that sometimes in Search and Destroy, when things are going wrong, and this of course is seen in the respawns as well, but it's kind of more apparent in Search sometimes. When you've got players like Envoy who, routinely Envoy will like fly out and take a Chal, and there's no one there for the trade, and maybe you see Dashi going for some sort of Chal on the other side of the map, and there's no team with him. Like, if you watch aBeZy and Simp run around the map together, they are always on top of each other, and I really think that some of the other teams, and Optic maybe especially, have to consider like looking at what FaZe are doing and seeing if they can try and emulate that somehow, because, Scump and Envoy, especially as the SMG duo, and I'm not saying that Formal and Dashi are playing perfectly right, there's obviously things that they can think about themselves, but Simp and aBeZy play relatively straightforward Call of Duty. aBeZy is absolutely flying around the map, and Simp is right there behind him. Almost every single time, that's just how they play together. They don't often go for these like weird long routes or whatever like Envoy likes to do, and often you'll see that Envoy and Scump are pretty separated, which is probably not what you want out of your SMG duo. At least, like, if I'm a team, I'm looking at FaZe, looking at what they're doing, and trying to see if we can figure out how to do something similar. Now, maybe you need to bring a different playstyle or something different to the game to actually take down FaZe, because maybe they're just going to do their playstyle better than you. But look, it doesn't really seem to be working for Optic so far. So, wanted to show what the guys on the flank had to say about the playstyle situation, the fact that they think that Optic need a player like an Asim, some sort of enabler, someone to take routes for actually the benefit of the team that they don't have right now. Does that mean they make a roster change? Not necessarily, but that someone on their team has actually got to step into this role.
There's a difference between route man that you're setting your team up, and there's a difference between route man that's like flanking and setting himself up for kills and trades.
There's
like
different play styles, and I feel like they're missing one.
You need an enabler like Asim, somebody like that makes the game flow easier and makes it easier for your superstars. Like someone's that's going out of their way to take routes the right way, so a superstar like Dashi, whatever, can just get in as many engagements as possible and put his gunny to use.
Right, and that's why. And listen, I think Envoy and Scump are very well capable of doing shit like that, but it also comes down to a playstyle thing sometimes. Like sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you need an aBeZy, you need an Asim, like you need those type of guys.
Thinking about it, Envoy and Scump can be very similar in the way they play at times, I think, at least.
I just feel like sometimes Envoy and Scump are just not on the same page. Like Scump's playing kills, he's roaming, Envoy's hitting a f***ing long route, like they're just like, they're not on the same page of what's going on. They're
let's talk about this round.
They're doing their own thing. Like they're doing their own thing a lot.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And here are some of the statistics behind Optic's difficult time this past stage. This I thought was very telling regarding to their Search and Destroy map pool. With Checkmates gone, they have 8 wins on Moscow, and on all the other maps in the game, they only have 7 wins. Now, as he says, Tweet's a little unfair because they played just so much Checkmates, and then therefore they had less opportunities on the other maps. But in Stage 4, they're 1-2 on Express, 2-0 on Moscow, 0-2 on Raid, and 2-2 on Standoff. So obviously not ideal for them, right? Like their Search and Destroy map pool on most of the maps is not in a great spot at all outside of Moscow, which teams are just going to ban against them unless you're FaZe. Of course, you'll play it on them, and other teams will play them on it as well, and maybe have good results against them. But still, with Checkmate Search and Destroy out of the map set, their standoff looked great early on. Now it's maybe a little bit suspect, and therefore they're in a really tough spot, especially given how important Search and Destroy is. And this of course is the other side of things, the fact that look, Optic just tend to be so good against the bottom 6 in the standings. Against LAG, Seattle, Paris, Florida, Minnesota, and London, they are 12-4. Against everyone else in the league, though, on the top side, they are 5-11. And that's just not going to cut it at the top end, right? This is the thing with Optic. They can beat some of the lower tier squads. They can start making a losers bracket run. But as soon as they come up against a couple of top teams in a row, I wouldn't bet on them to win like both of those series in a row, right? To make it to a grand finals or something like that. I just didn't feel that on this championship Sunday we just had, I just didn't feel that they were going to beat Dallas and then beat Toronto, right? They could have beat Dallas, but I didn't think they were going to do 2 in a row. And even if they did that, then they had to play FaZe in the grand finals, right? It's going to be tough to do so. So, what do you think Optic need to do exactly here going forwards? Of course, we always talk about the fact that the skill is there, but now LAN has come around and nothing has really changed. I think it may be somewhat of a wake-up call for these guys to realize, okay, look, there's no more excuses in a sense, that here we are, and still we're falling short of where we want to be as a squad. So are they right about the playstyle situation? Is that even something that can be changed, right? I think that's a question that you could ask, because is it too late in the season? We talked the entire season long about, okay, Optic's fundamentals aren't there, they're still making mistakes on the map, maybe they're not playing together, maybe the teamwork isn't there and the cohesion, but it's like, we talk about these things for months and nothing really seems to change. We see some of the Optic guys talking about it right here. As Forwell says, we show up some days and some days we don't. Hard problem to tackle. That's obviously a difficult problem to tackle, and it's a tough one to say where we show up some days we don't. If that's if that's the reason behind their disappointing situation. Of course, they beat Seattle and Minnesota, look pretty good one day, and then they come out against Dallas and don't look particularly good. As Envoy says, couldn't close any of those maps. Simple mistakes keep biting us. GG's Empire. Empire finished 4th at Major 4. So, some kind of reasons from the Optic guys, same stuff, different days as Scump at the time. You got their coach Sendu as well saying unacceptable loss. This is on the first day. Came out overcompensating so hard and not switching up our pace and doing what we talk about in practice day in and day out. Next match is on Saturday, and of course they make a good run on Saturday and fall short of the Dallas Empire in the end, but still not where they want to be. So what is the issue with the Optic guys? Do they have enough time to actually fix it, right? Can they turn things around? Because at the end of the day, FaZe are just streaking ahead of the competition right now, but they're still beatable, right? We've seen teams like Dallas Empire take them down to the wire. They almost lost this weekend to Dallas especially. They could have lost to Toronto in that series if they didn't go crazy clutch in that and reading that raid control. You guys might remember on the winner side of things. So it's obviously going to be tough, and I think we've been talking about the same things with Optic for several months at this point, and nothing really has changed. And it's just tough to see exactly where victory does come from in this current squad. Now, of course, roster changes, they're not going to happen. I wonder what happens in the offseason if things continue as they are. But certainly some significant, internal thinking and some going back to the drawing board required for the Optic guys here if they want to consistently get past some of these top squads. As Maven says as well, like all jokes aside, they kind of are the best online team ever. Talking about the Optic, the core of the squad, right? How back in World War II, for example, they win like every single 2K online early on back in the day when things used to be a little bit different to how they are now with some online early tournaments. And Optic were always very good at them, and then LAN early on, they might not always have the best time, and they would typically become very good on LAN towards the end of the season. Now, maybe it'll take them a little bit of time to get back used to this LAN situation, but unfortunately for them, they've only got the Stage 5 Major and then Champs on LAN. Of course, all the group play matches are back online in the near future. Just wanted to finish off with this. I thought was kind of interesting in terms of esports are global phenomena, as Rishi Sharda says over at the Twitter gaming site, talking about the most tweeted about esports team, Optic Chicago, of course, being one of them up here, FaZe, of course, number one. But I mean, it's always, when they talk about esports teams, it's kind of interesting because a lot of these teams like FaZe and 100 Thieves, a lot of the stuff that people are tweeting about them for is not necessarily purely esports related. Optic Chicago pretty much is. I was somewhat impressed about FaZe getting on here, right? Like Atlanta FaZe, they're actually not their FaZe clan, but they're Atlanta FaZe Call of Duty team. Pretty impressive. I mean, understandable, I suppose, when they're dominating the league, but Optic Chicago on the list nonetheless. But intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really upside the usual, good to know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.